Welcome back, everybody. My name is Reed. Along with me, as always, is Mike.
Hey
Mike,
everybody.
a little three-parter this week, talking about modern comics. So our first part today is just going to be the state of modern comics. Are they good? Are they bad? Where do we think it's at? Part two, we're going to kind of talk about what we think the legacy of this era will be. And then the third part is kind of where do we think the future of this medium is going to go. So we'll start with the first part, Mike, and I'll kick it to you to start. Very simple question. If someone asked you, Mike, are modern comics good? What would you say?
Some are.
Okay.
Some really are. Um, yeah, some modern comics are great. We have lauded them over the last couple of years, the ones that really took us by surprise and helped lift our spirits, take us out of the doldrums. But there are some really great comics out there right now. There is some aren't though, and some of my favorites aren't as good as they used to be, or as good as I would like them to be. And and so I'm not buying those. And I think that's commonplace for a lot of comic book fans right now. As and sales, show, that they're down here and there. So yeah, I think some comics are really good though. I mean, that's why we love the medium. It's words and pictures, like Todd McFarlane always said, and Neil Adams always said, it's the perfect medium for storytelling. And so you can't really go you can go wrong with it, but you shouldn't be able to really go wrong with these great characters and storylines. It's still an amazing medium to tell a very engaging story. Case in point, like what we've seen with Conan recently, Flash Gordon, and my favorite, Blade Runner, and others. But those are all indies. Some of the ones from the big two that are really good are like Ultimate Spider-Man, Absolute Batman. So there are some really good comics out there. But you gotta know what to look for. If you were new coming into comics and somebody's just saying, hey, like maybe a younger person, are comics really any good? I would definitely hope that they would ask somebody, and I would definitely steer them towards the good stuff before they, wandered into a comic book shop by themselves and, this doesn't read like Iron Man, or this doesn't read like, the Spider-Man I know, or I think I know.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the interesting thing, and people probably get tired of these analogies, but the most accurate one I can think of is the current NFL. I am a Bears fan. I lived in Indiana for a long time, so I have an affinity for the Colts. And there's a couple other teams that I like because family members like them. The Bears are not very good. The Colts are not very good. But if you ask me, is the NFL bad right now? No. I don't like the Kansas City Chiefs, but they're really good and fun to watch. I don't like the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're really good and fun to watch. The
Yeah,
Buffalo Bills have never been a team I've really cared about, but they're really good and fun to watch. And
yeah.
so just because my teams, the Bears and the Colts and teams that my family members have liked aren't great right now, doesn't mean the NFL is bad. It just means that the teams I like aren't great. And I think in comics, there's a tendency to condemn the whole industry because Spider Man's in a bad place, and Batman's in a bad place, and X Men's in a bad place. And for fans of those characters, that really does stink. As a
Yeah.
fan of those characters, it does stink. But like you said, Conan, Flash Gordon, Redcoat, Geiger, um, Moon Knight's got a great comic book. Aquaman has had some really strong runs the last 10 or 12 years. Um, some of the characters that maybe we don't love as much but have fans have blown up and done
Yeah.
well. I think the other portion that I have to give some credit for modern comics too, and again, we can say they're posting old ones, the availability and different methods of which you can buy classic comic books. When you talk about these compact editions, when you talk about the availability of omnibuses, compendiums, and the fact there are so many in circulation and it's easy to find, you can basically find any run of great comics in a printed form in this day, and that counts toward modern comics. I know it's old stuff, But if you go back 20 years ago, it was not necessarily easy to find collected editions of right now as a flash gun, Mike. I mean, you have them all in single issue. But if you
Yeah,
needed a copy of a flash issue that you really wanted to read, the digital availability, collected editions, these DC's finest things, omnibuses, you've got 10 to 12 options that you can get it. And I have to give that credit a bit to modern comics, and that's a part of it, right? They're publishing these and the availability of it. So I think it's a misnomer to say comics are bad right now. I think you can say there's certainly some bad things, but just like, hey, the Bears aren't good or the Browns aren't good or the Colts aren't good doesn't mean the whole NFL sucks.
right.
Just X-Men may not be in a great place doesn't mean comic books suck. Um, do you think do you think some of why some of these titles have struggled, Mike, in where modern criticism is, do you think it's because do you think it's a creative thing? Do you think it's where the fans are? Like, if you had to assess why some of these things are in a bad place, where do you think the majority of that blame rests?
I think there's, plenty of bad decisions to go around, whether it be the editorial board, the creators taking a swing and a miss, and then taking another swing and a miss at the same pitch, and then taking another swing and a miss at the same pitch. Um, and it's so I think there's blame to go around. Um, some people say, well, all the fans in social media, and people are trying to chase this and that in social media and put that into comics. And sometimes the fans, the critical fans, influence. I don't know any about that. I don't know anything about that. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but ultimately, when comic lines are strong, they're under strong editorialship, and they plot well and they execute well. And I think, gone are the days where um, they really had. I mean, I don't know. I don't work in Marvel or DC, so I have no idea. But I do know that Marvel, at least in DC, they would have these huge strategic plans for the year, and they had, excellent teams of creatives to execute those plans. And they would plot out their year and make sure everything that the stewardship was on the editor's shoulders to make sure that continuity fit and that the branding, the characters were on brand and that something interesting was delivered. And mostly they succeeded. I mean, sometimes they fell short. I mean, but I like our biggest complaint is it should be a layup to give us great stories for some of these characters because the groundwork has been so well laid out for them. But with the continuity where it is and some of the disastrous events and things that have happened in the last 20 years, it may be hard to build a bridge to where you could get back to where you're on solid storytelling footing. But I think that's where the absolute universes and the ultimate universes are, gaining some traction.
Yeah, I think if I had to pinpoint a single reason, um, I think it's actually in an effort to make the stakes seem to ramp up. We've lost the personal stories that made us love these characters. What's interesting
Yeah.
is, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's that's with the creative teams, the editorial. Like you should, purview some of these storylines and make sure that you don't lose sight of the forest for the trees, and get into these sideways storylines that you can't write your way out of the corner.
Well, I think why we love these characters, and I think you can even look at the superhero movie medium, the constant it's the crisis of the Earths, the infinite Earths, the dark multiverse. Batman's not just saving some kid who's captured. He's got to defend all of Gotham from a siege of the entire city over and over and over again. has made us lose the personal stories that we liked about these characters. When you look at stuff that has really resonated with audiences of time, one of the reasons Batman Year One is such a classic, it's just such a seminal personal story to Batman in that moment. The Long Halloween, it's just one serial killer that Batman is chasing throughout a year essentially. We love that story because it captures that smaller moment. I think even something that has larger stakes like Superman and Doomsday, the death of Superman, that resonated with a lot of people. It's largely one monster shows up and Superman has to stop it. And yes, the world might technically be at stake, but it's a personal fight between those two things. It's the unstoppable force and the immovable object thing. It's not, hey, it's the dark multiverse of something that's going to destroy all of Metropolis. It's there's a fight for Superman to handle. I think those one-off issues that we used to get, and I think there's a term everyone says, writing for the trade, where I think when you go back, and I've appreciated this when you brought up older comics that you've mentioned to me that I've gone back and read quite a bit of different characters like the Flash and things like that. I'm always amazed at the simplistic nature of the single issue of where
Yeah.
these old school writers could present a plot. There's a problem, Barry has it, the issue contains that issue, and there's a resolution at the end, and the Flash goes to fight another day. And it was all one and done in that issue. But that was really cool to have that, where as a kid, you could go and you grab that one issue of the Flash off the shelf or that one issue of Batman off the shelf, and you got everything you needed within that issue. And I
You
think
know,
that it's hurt. Go ahead, Mike.
and maybe we're just in a different world now where comic books would be, better served with those kind of single serving issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the longer storytelling format, but maybe it's just because I'm an old guy and I can wait a month between episodes. But the modern age is like you got to have it all right there, because you should be able to binge watch it or binge read it as it would pertain to comics. But yeah, I get it. The perpetual crisis of perpetual Earths is, and I think at some point, like, we've been through this, tumultuous time where there were ever, escalating perpetual crises that were, how big can the threat get, and you know, uh, I think we've gone to the heights that kind of storytelling can go. And I don't know if you can one-upsmanship anymore in that regard, but you can drill back down to, Matt Murdock, trying a case for a pro bono case, and finally gets a clue on, some criminal somewhere and tracks him down. Those stories, we love them. We can't get enough of them. And if you think we're tired of them, just look at everything from FBI case files or whatever is on TV monthly. It's weekly. It's always a new crime. It's the same team. It's a different criminal. We still there's still an enormous appetite for that kind of storytelling.
Well, and it's so interesting. I think it was the backbone of comic books. When you go back at why some of these characters resonated, I'm always amazed when I go back and read old Stan and Jack Marvel stuff.
Yeah,
Spider-Man has very few issues that continue into the next issue. Now, what was
yeah,
amazing was there would be stuff in the background that would get mentioned for a panel or two. I think Steve Ditko and Stan Lee's Spider-Man. There's this whole thing with like who's the master planner for a bit, and
yeah,
a random panel here or two every issue of like shadows and someone's on the phone and they're, oh, it's the master planner. Who is it? We'll reveal it. And then when you would finally get to the issue where here's the revelation of who it is, right? That felt bigger. Those moments felt large. It was like, wow, we're finally figuring this out. And I think in this effort to make everything epic, this effort to make everything a small piece of the large puzzle, you lose those personal things that made us love these characters. And I think when I read modern comic books, the biggest issue that I notice is the slow running, long developing plots aren't there anymore. I'm always amazed in how much you love Peter Parker as a character when you go back and read those first, 20, 30 issues. His pursuit of Betty Brant and trying to date her and how long that takes and how slow burn that is and how
yeah,
much you're invested in Peter succeeding in that area of his life. And it's just his dating life, right? And how
yeah.
much you see Spider-Man affecting that and his school works. And it's like, we don't do that kind of thing anymore. we kind of have that like Peter and Betty would be wrapped up in 6 issues, and he'd either be with her and that's the love of his life all of a sudden, or they're
Yeah.
done and he doesn't like her anymore. And I think that's the part we're missing is we used to, I think while we loved these characters, that slow burn effect of just every month you're checking in on them and there's progress. And then what was really cool, and I will always give Marvel a ton of credit for this, even more so than DC, what Stan, Steve, and Jack were brilliant at. They knew when it was time to give you the big issue. When you
Yeah.
Fantastic Four, right? You'd have several issues of kind of, hey, everyday adventure, one and done, one and done, one and done. Galactus trilogy. And it was like that pacing, I think, is what's gone. And I don't know if that's editorial saying right for the trade, if it's writers not wanting to do that, if it's they don't have faith that the comic's going to be around that long. And so they're like, well, we can't really dedicate time to that. But I do think that's probably, if I had to argue where modern comics maybe aren't good, I think it's that. I think there's a rush now of like, hey, in 3 issues, this character is introduced, meets the love of his life, he is the defining thing, and it's like, man, that's a lot, really quick. Um, Overall, to kind of close this, Mike, if you were the person that someone came to in the store and they went, hey, man, should I read new comic books or should I read old comic books? Where would you guide them to? What would you tell them? Would you tell them there's new stuff worth checking out, or would you go, hey, man, no, you need to go back to the oldies?
I would definitely point them to some of the amazing new stuff. Case in point, Conan yesterday, I was at a comic shop with, you know, and just a random shopper, and he was from, Austin, from out of town, and we were talking about all the great classic stuff. But I did recommend Conan, and I said you got to check it out. And he's like, "Well, I remember reading Conan." I'm like, "Oh no, you got to check it out. This new Conan is great." So I would definitely point him to some of the new stuff that's really, really good. But if they were completely new to comics, I would probably recommend a hybrid of both. And is are comics still good? Yeah, everybody will always love a story told with both pictures and words. That is a given. How you tell that story and which ones are good, that falls on the creator and the creators to tell that story well and to tell a good story. So, although there might be more misses than hits right now, I would definitely recommend some of the new stuff to a new comic book fan, as well as some pretty
Mixing
awesome
some of
runs
those
from the
oldies.
past. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think it's an interesting thought. Let us know for you guys down below. If you were just asked the question, are modern comics good? Would your answer be yes or no? We kind of gave our 2 cents on it. Let us know whether you agree or disagree. We just love seeing your guys' thoughts. Next part we're going to tackle on this is just what will the legacy of this era of comics be, kind of 30 years from now, when people look back at this time, or what will be the overall thoughts or how they see it. So, as always, folks, thank you for watching. God bless you. We will catch you in our next video.
Thanks, everybody.